As depressing as it is to say, I do believe that Father Time is starting to catch up with Steph Curry, and that spells doom for the Warriors. It just does. And so I think we have reached the point, and I know I made a couple videos on the Warriors in the last week, but I think we have reached the point on almost where we have to discuss how the Warriors plan to handle Steph's final years, because there doesn't look to be a path with the youth that is coming in to this roster for real contention. And they have a decent amount of assets, but I don't think they have enough assets to go all in and make a move to build a real contender again. And I don't think they should anyway, even if they think that they theoretically would. I feel like it's giving up a ton for the off chance that maybe you're good enough to kind of compete. And I just don't see it anymore. As much of a shame as that is to say, at the end of the day, he won 4 titles. He won another one in 2022 when we did not think he was going to get one. I mean, really, one of the greatest players of all time, the greatest point guard in the history of the NBA. Steph has had an unbelievable career and is still a very high level player. I do not want to criticize him as a player. I still think he's great. I just don't think he's great enough to carry a bad roster to contention. Not that there are very many players who are capable of that. Steph, unfortunately, is not one of them anymore. That presents 2 choices for the Warriors. Well, 3. You have the choice. You go all in, last ditch effort, pray you get somehow good enough to compete. I don't see that. The talk coming out of Golden State doesn't sound like that's really the goal, and I don't think it should be. The second thought, you kind of just accept that you are going to be a fringe play-in team at best the next few years, and you try to be decently competitive, but you accept that Steph's going to end his career in Golden State, probably without a lot of hoopla in terms of competitiveness, kind of like Kobe did. There's nothing really wrong with that. There's no real shame in his last few years being played on a team that isn't a real contender. It's the same thing Kobe, D Wade, a lot of other players have experienced that over the past decade or so, and in my lifetime. It's not an uncommon thing. And then the third option is that he were to get traded. Do I think that will happen? No. Do I think it should happen? No. So please don't get mad at me if you're a Golden State fan. I'm not suggesting that the Warriors should trade Steph Curry. All I am suggesting is that there is that possibility that they go, oh, you want to win? Okay, we might move you. We might consider moving you and giving you one more opportunity to try to win in a different market. I don't think they'll do that. I don't think they should. Either way, Steph is the greatest Warrior of all time and will be treated as such forever. And I just think it would be cool for him to be one of those one franchise guys, kind of like Dirk was, kind of like Kobe was. Guys like that, it's not super common to have a all-time great play their entire career with one team, especially in this day and age. And I think there's something special about that. But again, what that probably means is that just like Kobe and Dirk and D Wade, who didn't play his whole career with one team, but still, the end of his career will likely flame out without real contention, and that's okay. But I think that's probably the most likely scenario at this point for where Steph's career is going. At the end of the day, the Warriors are not a good team. And Steph has played a decent amount. That's the thing. Like, he's not missed a huge chunk of games. 36 games so far this season out of there. After tonight, they're 22 and 23. They've played 45. So he's missed 9 games, but that means he's been available for almost about probably 80% of their games this season. In fact, I think exactly 80% of their games this season. And look, the numbers aren't bad by any means. He's averaging 22.5 points a game. He's shooting 45%, 40% from 3. You do have to keep in mind his numbers efficiency-wise across the board have gone down the last couple of years. They absolutely have. This year and last year, he's just not been as efficient as he had been for pretty much the vast majority of his career, especially in his prime over the past decade or so. While still amazing, the numbers are not as efficient, and he's not quite as good of a finisher at the rim and things of that nature. And that's understandable for a guy who is now, 36 years old, getting into that later stage of his career. He's still a 22 point per game, 6 assists a game, really solid all-around player. The assist to turnover ratio hasn't gotten significantly worse. He's still a very impactful player and a very good one. He's just not the same player he once was. This is the lowest his scoring average has been since the injured 2020 season, where he got hurt 5 games into the season. And basically that stat line is 4 games or 5 games worth of stats of averaged, I guess, 4 games of stats averaged into 5 games. So it's a little bit misleading there as well. But really the lowest points per game he's scored since his 4th season in the league. And really even before that, since like before he was a superstar. And I just don't think he's quite the same anymore. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not criticizing the guy. I hope if you're a Warriors fan, you don't hear me criticizing Steph. He's in my opinion, the greatest point guard of all time. He probably didn't deserve to be an all-star starter this year, but it's in the Bay Area. Do I care? Absolutely not. Do I mind that Steph and LeBron, who did not deserve to be all-star starters, in my opinion, are all-star starters? I do not mind that in the slightest. They are the two greatest players of our generation and deserve to be celebrated as such, even if that means that they maybe get not the most deserving nods for certain things. It's okay. I don't mind it at all. And I hope that the Bay Area, this is a celebration of Steph in a lot of ways. It should be. It's very cool that the All-Star game is being held in his arena, and I hope that he is celebrated for that. And I hope he feels that love, because he has had an incredible career and is truly one of the greatest players we have ever seen. But the honest truth is, the fact of the matter is, the Warriors are bad. They've gone 10-20 in their last 30 games after starting the season 12-3. They are not good at all. Offensive rating wise, they are bottom 5 in all of basketball. The other 4 teams are the Wizards, the Nets, and the Hornets, 3 of the worst teams in basketball, and the Magic, who have massively struggled on the offensive end of the court for most of the season. And without Franz Wagner for most of the stretch, without Paulo Banchero for most of the stretch, and even with Paulo back, haven't been quite all that great. They've really struggled offensively. But the other thing is, defensive rating wise, they're not that much better. Like, they're bottom 9 in the league in defensive rating as well. Their net rating is a minus 5.4, which is, again, 6th worst in basketball. Like, in every metric that you look at for this team, offensively and defensively, they're not good. There's just no defending it. I don't know how you sit here at this point and go, yeah, I think there's a path to this team becoming a contender again this season. I think it is, at this point, in all honesty, more likely that they miss the playoffs entirely than it is that they make it. The only 8 teams are going to make the playoffs. And if you sit here right now and tell me that you think the Warriors are better than the Clippers with Kawhi pretty much healthy now, the Timberwolves, who have struggled but still are 24-21, the Mavs, who are better than the Warriors by a couple games still somehow, despite massive injuries, and will at some point here in the relatively near future get Luka back, the Suns, who made a nice trade for Nick Richards and look a bit better as of late, won 7 of the last 10, the Kings, who are streaking with Doug Christie, have looked a lot better recently as well, though they have lost 2 games in a row now, but have been playing much better recently as well. And even the Spurs, with Wemby and a young core that looks solid and may get better at the deadline. I just don't think that they're good enough to be in the top 8, because what that means is, if you look at these 6 through 12 teams right here, you got 6 teams beside the Warriors that are fighting for 3 spots. You're telling me out of that 7-team group with the Warriors and those other 6 teams, the Warriors are one of the 3 best teams in that group? I don't think so. You want to make an argument for them over the Spurs, maybe the Kings, maybe even a couple other teams in that group? You probably could. I don't think you're making an argument for them over 4 of those teams. And at this point, it is what it is, man. It's what happens. This is normal. This is absolutely normal. LeBron's missed the playoffs a couple times in the last few seasons. Every superstar does at the end of the day. Like, it's just how it goes. This is not again, me bad-mouthing Steph in any way. But at this point, Father Time has caught up to him. He's not quite the same player that he once was. And the Warriors certainly are not at all the same team they once were. It's over in Golden State. And I think they'd be foolish to go all in, because there's just no path to contention with the team they have and with the assets they have, I don't think. So with that being said, that's gonna do it for the video. I hope y'all did enjoy. If you did, make sure you hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe. I'll be back with more NBA content very, very soon. And I appreciate y'all. Peace.